Kirk and Robert, I got to say this right off the top. This is probably the biggest interview that I have done in my entire career, the most important interview because I was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome when I was 12 years old. Uh, Resonated very much with the story, so much so that Kirk, I reached out to you on Instagram back in October about putting this all together. So I just want to say thank you to you both for taking the time today.
You're very welcome.
Wow, amazing, yeah.
I'm going to start with you, Kirk. You wrote, directed, and produced this movie. So do you have a personal connection with Tourette's? Is there somebody in your family? Because we talked about My Big Fat Greek Wedding too, but for you to share this story and for it to be so on point, how did this all start for you?
I don't have a connection with Tourette, so I didn't. I feel like I do now. I didn't before I met Jon. My son has a level of autism, so I'm a little bit aware of kind of neurodiverse conditions and how crippling they can be to people. Whether it's Tourette's or whether it's autism or OCD or high levels of anxiety. So I'm aware of that world. But really, for me, I think I would like to say I did this to make people aware of Tourette's. And actually, the reason was I did this because I thought Jon's story was the most extraordinary story I've seen in many years. And I couldn't understand why no one else had considered making a film about Jon's life. It did occur to me at one point that maybe because Jon has coprolalia, that it was the swearing. Maybe people looked at it in the past and thought, yeah, if you're going to do that, it's not going to, be well received or it's not going to get distribution because of the swearing. And I can honestly say now, we're 7 months in to the first release. I've seen thousands of comments, reviews. I've done, a lot of press. Not one single person, online or otherwise, has commented on the swearing. No one has been upset by the swearing because they understand from the first 2 minutes of the film that it means nothing at all. And that's the first thing to understand, as you will know, especially about coprolalia, when someone shouts something which is upsetting or concerning to other people, it isn't their belief. It isn't intentional. They cannot control it. And I think people who watch the film, it's just why we want as many people to watch the film. And I promise you, I'm not just saying that for commercial reasons. When you watch the film, you understand. And it's as simple as that.
Thank you for not making Tourette's the punchline as well. That was one of the reasons I started the show and got in this business. Was it ended up culminating into this interview right now. Was Tourette's for the longest time was the punchline a lot of time in different movies and stories. So thank you both for coming at it with a very real life take on it as well. And I will say real quick, I think it's like 15% of people, I think with Tourette's do end up swearing. So it's not everybody that has Tourette's that do that. I have more. So Robert, the neck clicks and stuff like that, that's what I had a lot when I was, 12, 14 years old. So what was your knowledge of Tourette's before this all began? Did you have friends that maybe have had it, or did you not know about it? Or
yeah, I would say I had quite a sort of basic viewpoint of Tourette's really before the film. There's a stereotype, and that's what I believed. And then I think that was one of the most first eye-opening things of working on the film was meeting people, talking to people, reading things that just sort of blew my mind really in terms of how complex it is and how much I didn't know, and then then the sort of responsibility and the sort of I felt like the need of the film was even much stronger to me then. Once I realized how much I think the misconceptions out there.
The first time, I want to ask each of you, the first time that you met Jon in real life, first time you sat down with him, what did you end up taking away from that meeting? Was there anything that surprised you, that you, Kirk, helped you put this story together and the vision of it, but then Robert with you, obviously playing the character?
Yeah, first time I met Jon, I think the first thing that I thought is that he's such a knowledgeable guy. He's such an amazing man, and he was so forthcoming with the knowledge. He wanted to tell me things. He wanted to teach me things, even from the word go. And so it taught me about that dynamic of his personality, which I think is it's a really amazing trait that he has. He's so giving. He's so empathetic. And so like that was my sort of first observation of him, really, and something that I felt, you know, it's in the film. You know, it's a big part of who he is.
Because I'd been familiar with the documentaries, and of course I'd rewatched them in detail before I met Jon, because I was approaching him to possibly, you know, make a film about his life. It's interesting because, of course, the documentaries tend to focus on the swearing, and when you look at them, they're almost edited to make the most impact of the swearing. So when you meet Jon, the first thing that you realize is that he's probably the sweetest, kindest, most gentlest man I've ever met, which is in contrast to what you get from, you know, the coprolalia. But secondly, I think that he had been misunderstood. Not just Jon, but the whole community had been traditionally misunderstood. And I felt that in probably the first 10 or 15 minutes. I think if Jon was honest, you know, I was knocking on his door. He didn't know who I was. He Googled me. He realized I was a film director coming up from London to Galashiels. So he was A, really nervous, but B, I think really suspicious. You know, what was this guy? What was he gonna do, you know, with his life story? Was it gonna be a really bad taste comedy or not? So that initial meeting was you know, really important for me. And then when I knew that I wanted Rob to play the part, I took Rob to meet Jon, because again, Jon was an associate producer. I always wanted Jon to feel comfortable with whoever was going to play him. And after they met, Jon said, you know, absolutely love him, and I would be absolutely thrilled if Rob would play me. So just try to involve Jon as much as possible.
For me, it was very similar, because nobody knew what Tourette's was when I was going through middle school. So I was getting kicked out of class. It was very, very similar of what was going on in the film with the community and all that. And so thank you, first off, for including that. But then also the camp. So towards the end of the movie, you show more of the outreach, the camps, the things like that. You end up having real people with Tourette's that are there in that scene. What was that like to be on set, you know, with individuals that actually are, you know, have Tourette's like myself, being represented in the film?
I mean, for me, it was some of the best memories. It was a little stressful because it wasn't kind of scripted and controlled, and I didn't want to make any demands on them. I didn't want to say, you know, can you calm down? Can you be quiet? Can you do this? Can you do that? I just wanted them to be themselves. And yes, you're right. In a cast of which totaled about 90, I think we had 30 people who had Tourette's. But I, at one point, had forgotten also that the parents of a lot of the kids were what we used in the film. And when Rob delivers a monologue as Jon, basically saying, you know, this weekend is about you as much as about your kids. You are not superhuman. You know, don't give yourself a hard time. It's really difficult living as a parent and helping people with this condition. And I realized that there were people who were crying. And then I remembered, actually, these are the real parents, and they're reacting in real time to Rob's monologue that he was delivering.
Congratulations to you both. The BAFTA, well-deserved, my friend. And thank you so much for properly representing the Tourette community in film.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, man.
Take care.